Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, VBAC mama, and doula. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this, and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. Hello. In this episode of Entering Motherhood, I sit down and chat with Fionna, who is a local doula here in the upstate of South Carolina and the founder of Wellness Womb. She shares how her own birth trauma truly inspired her to become a doula and specialize in birth, postpartum, and a unique type of care, which is sibling doula care. This episode explores this unique role of sibling doulas who are professionals who support older children during a mother's labor. We also highlight the importance of advocacy, emotional support, and building trust with families. Fionna goes into how we can be preparing children for birth, fostering community connections, and the value of having a dedicated support system, especially for families that don't have relatives that live nearby. This episode offers practical advice and resources for expecting parents, and I know you're just going to get so much out of it and find it so fascinating. So with that, let's jump into it and get this episode started. Hello, and welcome to Entering Motherhood. Super excited to have you here today and get chatting. So before we get started, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself for the listeners?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. Yes, I'm Fionna. I am the owner and founder of Wellness Womb here in Greenville, South Carolina. I am a doula that offers many different things. So things from birth to postpartum and sibling doula care.
Awesome. So how did you get into doula work?
That is a loaded question. Yeah, so actually, I became a doula out of my trauma from a first birth. And my first birth was an induction at 37 and a half weeks. I was preeclamptic. I was in labor for 72 hours. Actually, didn't end up in a C-section. So I was very kind of grateful for that. Ended up having a vaginal birth. But in the midst of all of that, I kind of became a number, and days and hours were just passing by. And I was hearing other moms have babies while I was still in labor. And that was really hard for me. I had one nurse that came in and was like, "You're still here?" And I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "We're going to get you going. Like, we're having this baby today." And it was so validating. And I was like, okay, like, you actually care. Like, you're not just pumping meds into me. You're not just managing. Like, we're actually going to be moving the needle. And I had listened to birth podcasts, and I really wanted a home birth. And then obviously that couldn't have happened with preeclampsia. And my husband was honestly traumatized by the whole thing. So I was like, okay, I want to be a labor and delivery nurse. Like, I had no idea what doula work was at this point. So I went to nursing school, got pregnant with my second, and was pregnant with my second in nursing school, a mom working full time. Chaos ensued. I actually was going through nursing school during the pandemic. And this was when, autonomy was still a thing. And then that kind of got taken away from us. And I was like, whoa, that's not what I want to do and where I want to be. And to prevent birth trauma, I ended up hiring my own doula. And through that process, I was like, wow, like, they're so vital. Like, I was actually afraid of her not being able to be in my birth room. And I was like, wait, no, I need her. So she was a part of my birth journey, and she's actually now my mentor. And I went through training where she went through training. So we get to chat a lot. But yeah, doula work was birthed out of trauma, unfortunately, but it actually has prepared me so much for the things that I see in hospitals and how to advocate for moms, how to also prepare them. So I'm always like one step ahead of them. And I'm like, okay, like, this is what you can expect next. And it's usually right on the dot, and they're prepared to answer or advocate in that moment.
Love that. Yeah, I think sometimes it's like, I don't want to say like good or bad. Like, it's like, okay, like a bad thing happened to us that like led us down this road. But it's also like our personal experience gives us that background and almost like more than, any book that you read or, training that you take can't put you through like that personal experience side of things. And so I think like that's really important. Like obviously like you can be a doula, you can, be other professions without having to go through that personally yourself, but I do think it makes such a difference when you have that personal experience of, multiple different things happening.
Absolutely. I feel like doula work can be for anyone that likes advocacy and to honestly just be in an emotional support person. But like you said, having that touch of I went through this, I have empathy for you, I see you, and here's how we can move through this really makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, like, that's why I love supporting VBAC moms because that was my journey, and that's my jam. Like, I get so amped up when I listen to somebody's story of their cesarean, and I'm like, "Yep, yep, yep." Like, we are so on that same page. Like, I feel your emotions. Like, obviously, everybody has, like, their own personal experiences, things like that, but I'm like, I resonate with your story, and I want to be there with you along this journey. And it's really cool, like, when they do successfully have a VBAC and it happens, and I'm like, "Yes!" Like, "Your pelvis wasn't too small, like, you could push out a baby." Like, all like like, all the different things that, like, they were put up against or, "Oh, like, you only have this percent chance of success rate,"
Yeah,
or whatever it
like, I
is.
feel like labels too, right? And if it really goes back to like providers too. Like if we have a provider that doesn't believe in us, we start to adopt that. And so having a doula that believes in us and then a provider that believes in us and we're stripping the labels, like there's just so much success behind that.
Yeah. Cool. So I specifically want to dive into sibling doula care because you are going to be our sibling doula for this upcoming birth, which when this episode comes out will probably have already happened because we are getting close.
Just a
But
little bit.
so I want to talk about, like how you like obviously, there are sibling doulas around and things like that, but like your package really stood out to me. One specifically because of the date nights. So I love that. I've loved taking advantage of that. And then just like you get to really know the kids beforehand, which is so unique and helpful because now our kids love you and they're so excited for when Fiona comes over. And so when the birth happens, I know that that same energy is going to be there and they're going to be cared for. So, how did you kind of get into sibling doula care? And can you kind of explain for those that don't know what it is, what it like what it is?
Yeah. So I actually have a career nanny background. And so I've taken care of kids probably since the ripe age of like 12. And that was when you could go and knock on your neighbor's door and be like, hey, can I make money by watching your kids? And so I've always had a passion for kids. I even was a gymnastics teacher growing up. So kids have always just been a part of who I am and building those relationships, not just with the children, but with parents too. So when I started doula work, it was really about birth and about postpartum. And we thought about having a third, and I was like, "What are we gonna do with our kids?" All of our family has moved away. We don't have a village. We're brand new to Greenville. What do we do? Like, that's a really big question, and I was like, "I don't wanna go to the hospital by myself, like, I need my person." And so, I actually put a question out in the Greenville Mommies group, and I was like, "Hey, how many of you guys have not had your partner there with you in labor because you don't have someone trusted to watch your kids?" And the response was overwhelming. Like it gives me so much chills thinking about it. So many moms in the Greenville area went to a hospital alone and delivered their child without their husband there. And it broke me, and I was like, "Absolutely not. Like, I need to change this." And so, I thought about that, like, my passion for kids and also, like, my doula work, and you don't just really show up to a birth. Like, you really have to be intentional, and you really have to know that person and what they like and what they don't like and how to speak to them, how to meet them where they are. And so I applied that to kids, and I was like, let's build relationships. Let's do date nights or date days, whatever works. Because, some moms are like, I want you to take advantage of the time, the 3 full hours, get to know them, feed them, chat with them, whatever it is. And then also, like, for my younger younger group, like where they're becoming a sibling. They don't have siblings. And it's like, how do I foster that? How do I make it a positive experience? And sometimes I'm coaching mom through that, like how to integrate a baby into the hospital room or integrate baby back into the home if they choose to have a parent or someone meet me afterwards. But mostly, it was to give moms that opportunity to have their person there with them rather than doing it alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important and, especially, like, when you are going to the hospital and you need to leave your home and maybe it's the middle of the night and it's like, sure, like, maybe a neighbor does say, like, "Yeah, I can do it," but it's almost one of those things, like, even if I call you at 2 in the morning, like, having somebody that's specifically designated to that role, and then they know what to expect, they know what it's like to be on call, they know what it's like to wake up at 2 in the morning and be fully, there and aware and ready for, like, when the kid wakes up and they're like, "Where's my mom and dad?" You
Yeah.
know? Like, it's, like, little
Yeah.
things like that, and like you said, like, especially here in Greenville, I think there are a lot of, what we call transplants, and there are people that are not surrounded by family, and so, in the sense of, like, building our village and having other people here, like, sometimes that does rely on paid help to come and do those things because it is a little tricky when it's like, you're asking a neighbor, but they have their life and they might need to go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're still at the hospital or whatever it might be. And then in our case, we're having a home birth, but I still was like, heck, like, I want my husband in there with me, like fully aware and alert and, paying attention to the birth of this new baby so
Absolutely.
if our kids are up, if they're, running around causing a muck, then like there's somebody there to be with them. And it's such a cool concept of, having that be and then like building all of these like bits and pieces because we're still having a birth doula, like we still have a midwife, like we have like all these other people that are coming together and we're all still going to be at our house, but it's like everybody kind of like plays their role, and I think, more people when I like talk about my birth team and I'm like digging into like all of these different things, they're like, "I didn't even know that existed." Or like, "I didn't even know that could be a thing." And like maybe you don't have sibling doulas in your area, but there's a birth doula that might be open to trying that. And now they do have that available as like part of
Yeah.
their packages or whatever it might be. And yeah, I think obviously there needs to be that like passion behind it because like if you don't enjoy
Absolutely.
kids, maybe it's not
Absolutely.
something that you want to like add on. Like I think, like there's doulas that are like specifically birth, specifically postpartum, like specifically for siblings. It's really cool that you can kind of blend and mesh all of those things and still do it all.
Yeah, that's what I love so much about doula work is the different capacities it carries. And I always related doula work back to birth. And then I was like, oh, postpartum's a thing. And then I was like, oh, sibling doula is a thing. I was like, that is crazy. Because even if you have a nanny, how is that nanny going to navigate being on call? When do they go on call? Do they know about that? Like, do they know the window of birth? Do they know, yes, they know your kids, but do they know your wishes? Like, we talked about that. Like, how do you want your kids involved in your birth? Like, how do you want them involved? How do you, like, all of the things that go into a birth to not only protect the mom's space, but also to protect the mental health of a child as well. Birth can be intense and it's knowing those appropriate times to interact a child into that realm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool that you know about birth and you have that experience because my kids are already asking, like, well, what's this going to be like? How does that happen? And like, I've been trying to, introduce like what sounds I might be making, what things they might hear. And I know that when they're with you, if they're like, is mommy okay? Like, what does that sound? Like, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, like that sounds perfectly normal. Whereas, if it was somebody who's not experienced in birth or, somebody younger who has never had kids would probably be like, "I don't know, your mom sounds like she's, like, having a hard time up there." And then, like you said, like, their mental health, like, their we want them to stay calm and know that, like, everything is safe. And so, like, having that expertise in that birth knowledge and even, like, immediately postpartum, like, what is baby gonna look like? How can we approach baby? Or, like, going into the room afterwards. All those things, it's like, it really plays into it because maybe a typical nanny is not aware of those things. So, or
Absolutely.
or a neighbor or a friend or even, a family member, having somebody who's, like, specifically designated to, like, that is their role is just, like, such a cool concept.
Yeah, and you brought up a really great point of, like, safety and being with your kids, like, they've fallen down, I've been able to, like, comfort them, so now they know they're safe with me. So say, kids are being kids and we're outside at the park and they fall down and they're like, "I wanna go tell my mom." I'm like, it's more like I can intervene right there, and it's like, "You are safe with me, and, like, I can absolutely help you through this," because we've built that relationship rather than showing up in the middle of the night, like you said, "Where's my mommy and daddy? Who are you?" And then we have to, like, start from ground zero. And so, yeah, the date nights, like, it all, like, works so well. I eventually wanna work with, like, an illustrator on, like, coloring pages or cultivating a book around becoming a sibling and the emotions and specifically, like, home birth too, because like you said, the noises and listen, I love me a noisy birth, so we'll be good there. Like, I can totally be like, "That sounds like baby's really close." And then I get excited about it,
Right.
and, like, normalizing those things. And I think for, like, from you just being a doula, your kids have a deeper knowledge on their grade level of how babies come to being in the real world. I feel like your kids probably ask really great questions. I know your oldest does. She asks
Yeah.
really good questions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because sometimes I don't know, like, I've always heard, if they ask the question, then they can get an answer, but, like, try to keep it, like, age appropriate, and for me, I'm like, well, like, what is like, where do we because I don't mind like, obviously, I'm not gonna tell them, like, how a baby is made in detail yet, like, that can be
We're
later
not
down the
ready.
road, but, like, Rosie knows that she was born via cesarean. She knows kind of about, like, what that was like and that there was an incision in mommy's belly, so she came out mommy's belly. She also knows that Isaac came out of my vagina. So, like, we use those words, we talk
Yes,
about
we
those
do too.
things, and so, like, I'm like, "Okay, maybe that's a little bit farther than some other parents are gonna go," but, like, that's where our comfort level is, and I think, like, that's something that, you probably work with your clients too, like, where are we on the line of how we're explaining babies being born? Because, like,
Yeah.
my kids, like, you could be like, "Oh, yeah, like, head cut," like, we were saying, like, they were like, "Wait, if the head is, like, down lower, then, like, how is baby coming out?" And so I'm like, their head comes out first, they might be, like, covered in some different fluids, like, I'm getting into detail. And they're like, "Oh, okay," like,
Okay.
"Alright." And I'm
But you
like,
also don't want the shock and awe effect, right?
"Right.
Because you're allowing Rosie to kind of come in and out of that room as she feels like she wants to, and if we get to the end portion, birth is messy, and so preparing her for that, and if she's not comfortable with that, knowing that she can be like, "Oh, I'm good right now." And I think she's so mature that she would totally do that, where she'd be like, I'll come back later."
Uh-huh." Yeah, it's really cool, and it's like, they've already had a sibling, so, like, I feel like in that sense, like, obviously, this is, like, a new dynamic, but
Yeah.
even though Isaac is the youngest and this will be a younger sibling, he already knows what it's like to have a sibling, and so, like, I am curious to see, like, how that dynamic will change being an older brother versus, like, just a little brother.
Yeah.
But but yeah, it's really cool that, like, you can combine that knowledge of, just knowing kids in general and then knowing the birth world and knowing,
Yeah.
about babies and things.
Yeah, and a cool fact, rare fact about Greenville, there's maybe only 2 or 3 sibling doulas in this area. And so as it's becoming more of a thing, I do, like, get more curiosity and questions, and I wouldn't say inquiries because it's still so new, but it's definitely something that I want to lean into a little bit more now that I'm like growing a team and I have, a birth doula that also was a career nanny. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you also have this incredible knowledge, like that you could also support families. And so it's growing that and bringing awareness to it as well. So yeah, I genuinely love the side of sibling doula care.
Yeah, I think it is something that is newer, and a lot of people will probably be like, "Oh, is it, like, necessary? Like, do I really need it?" And then also probably so what would you do in the scenario of, like, somebody is having a very long, lengthy labor? So, like
Yeah.
and they're at the hospital, so it's like they kind of need you the whole time because they can't be going back there themselves.
Yeah, of course. So I've had a few different situations. I had a family that was going to immediately call grandparents. They lived a little bit further away, but they were like, if I go in the middle of the night, we're probably not going to call them until the morning. So that was really what I was there for. And once it became morning time, we'll say 6 or 7, they activated the grandparents. The grandparents drove up here and so that really was like the perfect situation because then dad didn't have to leave. And also, I'm not the doula that's going to be like, peace out. I reached my, hours. I'm leaving. No, like I can't do that. Like that is just not me, not my obligation. Like, absolutely not. But if it was a long and lengthy labor, like I'm just going to assess the situation. Like, what happened, like, and I hate to say what happened, but like, if it's a first time mom, like, obviously, they're not gonna have a sibling, but if they have a sibling by marriage, that would be a different situation, and so it's explaining those things, and I do kinda let my clients double dip a little if they're not in the doula world, and I'm like, "Please, if you have questions, like, feel free to text me." Like, if you think you're in labor, but you're not really in labor, like, call me, like, let's talk about it, like, I still give my sibling doula clients that knowledge of a doula so that they know when to call me, when to leave, when to, activate their people of, their community, whether it's the pet sitter or whoever it is. But when it comes to the end of it, like the safety of the child is my ultimate goal. Some families, like if we get to that end where I'm like, hey, like we're getting really close to the end, like how are things going? If it's a case of like, are you comfortable with me loading your child up so I can go get my kids from school? They're totally cool with that. So it's like they understand the flexibility of like me also needing to show up as a parent and the flexibility of keeping their child safe. And so I love the two dynamics there because we've built that relationship. And sometimes our kids have even come over for play dates where I'm like, you get to meet my kids too. You get to see the craziness that I live in every day and see what their dynamic is. Are they going to be best friends afterwards? Like we love play dates afterwards. But yeah, so I ultimately like the safety of the child is my ultimate goal and integrating them into my family if I have to, like for safety reasons, like if things have gone over, like but at the end of the day, I'm never gonna pressure a parent like, hey, the clock is up, like it's time for me to go. Like birth is so gray and so like, it's gonna unfold in 20 different ways, that I hate to put timelines on things, but obviously I have to protect myself and my family, but at the end of the day, I've built a relationship deep enough that I can be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to the park with them. I'm gonna go get my kids. I'm gonna get them out of the house," or whatever the case may be, and they're understanding of that as well.
Yeah. That is one thing I didn't think of, like, obviously, it's not a first-time mom unless it is, like, a child through marriage that you're having a sibling doula.
Yeah.
So, the likelihood of, like, the longer, lengthier first-time scenario, pregnant or labors is not really, like, playing into effect. But what other, I guess, like, frequently asked questions would you think there are about sibling doula care?
Yeah, so we nailed a lot of that. Like they're gonna receive the 2 3-hour date nights to build the relationships. I'm gonna be on call for 5 weeks. So it's like I'm available at any time. Also, they're gonna get the knowledge of a doula so they can text me if they're like, hey, I've got a weird question for you. Nothing is TMI around here. Obviously, we have that like I'm gonna show up in the middle of the night, fully aware of like what's happening, what the next steps are. Really, like that's really it. Like as far as frequently asked questions, like we kind of covered that, like, how am I integrating them into the birth space if it's a home birth? What are we doing? Like, I'm all for schedules. We love schedules around here. So if your kid's on a schedule, like we're sticking to it. I'm type A. I usually attract type A clients, which is my jam. I also send frequently notes to the mom or to the dad. And so what I do, like if you have an iPhone, I think you know this, where you collaborate on a note and I'll add things into the note throughout the day. So I'm not bombarding them with like a billion text messages. And they just get to peek in and see how the day is going. Sometimes I'll leave notes or suggestions of like, hey, they really love this, or whatever the case may be, or this is how they're feeling, or, this is what they've requested. They would really love to be, sitting down next to dad while they're holding the baby because we've talked about this. And so it's really also advocating for them for the birth space when they get to enter it on their own time.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited. I just went out shopping today and I got each of them a little basket of like craft things and a new book and like a little snack. So like you'll be able to kind of be like, this is from mom, daddy, and baby, and then like have some new things to do because
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know. It's like one of those things like we've never crossed this bridge. We've never had this scenario. Like Rosie was only a little over 2 when Isaac was born. So like obviously there's still like a need for care at that age,
Yeah.
and like we had a friend come and get her and things like that, but like now they're really at the like I need to be like stimulated and talked to and
Yeah,
bouncing
they
around
love
doing
some
things.
physical play, man. We have
Yeah.
the best time together, and, I also think, like, being a boy mom is, like, really cool and, like, plays into that energy because I get to meet them at that energy, but then it's also, like, you have 2 totally different kids, which is so cool, and it's balancing that. It's like, "Hey, like, Isaac, do you wanna come play with Rosie now? Like, we're gonna do this." And then, like, once Rosie's done doing this, it's like, "Okay, like, let's go do something that Isaac wants to do." And so it's a really good balance, but always high energy for sure.
Yes. Cool. So, what would you say to a mom that is kind of like maybe going through it the first time, or something that like you wish that you would have known before entering motherhood?
Yeah, so I had to send my kid away to a grandparent's house for, like, a week and a half, and that was really hard, and we didn't even get to come home with him, like, he came home after, and so I really wish I would have started building my village sooner and integrating with my neighbors more, or finding a trusted nanny and just kind of, like, figuring it out, honestly, of, like, what that would look like for them to be here. But yeah, find your village now. Like, don't wait until 3rd trimester. Get into mom groups, mom walks, because they're gonna have the best nannies because they've been here the longest. But don't wait. Don't wait until it's crunch time or when you're in labor that you're like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do?" Because I think the last thing that you want is to go to the hospital alone and not have your person there with you.
Yeah, I think, it has really become like such a vital thing for us to be like building these villages. And that's why
Mm.
we had like the Build Your Village Summit, and you were one of our vendors and sponsors, and, like so much a part of that. And I was just recording a podcast yesterday, and you were here watching Isaac.
Yeah.
And not when we were recording, but afterwards I was like, oh yeah, like Fiona's here, like she's watching Isaac. And the person I was interviewing was like, you guys truly are like building that village and like showing how it can work. And it's a really cool concept because people talk about it or, like envision it, or like maybe like they have like some family or things like that. But like we really truly are like, not only in the doula community, but other people around here are so acclimated with wanting to build that village. And Ashley put together a huge long list of all the different like mom groups and things and stuff that we
Yeah.
have, and it is like 4 pages. Like, there
Yes.
is so much in the Greenville area that is unreal. And so, like, I encourage other communities and other places to really go out and find these things. And if you're not finding it, like you said, like, build it, get those people together, like, just start some sort of, mom text group, even if it is, so
Yeah.
that you have people that you can talk to about this stage of life, and they're physically around that you can, call on people. Like, I was like, holy crap, like, because Taylor usually watches the kids on Monday,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What am I gonna do? She's out of town." And I was like, "You know what? Like, I'll ask Fiona." And sure enough, it's like, yes, like, I can come and I can do this. And it's just like having those people, and now, like, you know our kids, and
Yep. Yep.
you're you're, uh, you're in.
I'm in. I don't think I have an out at this point.
So, it's just
Yes.
it's really cool, like, to be, like, finding those people, and so, like, encouraging people to build their village and find those people for themselves, I think is such vital information.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, like you said, like if it's not in a maternal health desert, like that's a situation that I'm thinking of right now where it's those resources might be limited. You can potentially still find someone or something or a resource or a neighbor or, you know, the 12-year-old little girl that I used to be knocking on people's doors, can I make money to watch your kids? Like there are still those people out there that still have a passion for kids and a passion for you and that just want to love on you and show up for you in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, where can we find you? Where can we get in touch with you? What kinds of things do you have going on?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, wellness.womb, or my website, www.mywellnesswomb.com. Yeah, those are the two places to find me. I love posting, so you guys spam people all the time, but it's fine. But yes, those are the two places you can find me. We've got some really cool things in the work for our clients as far as like childbirth education. I'm actually coming out with a breathwork course soon
Ooh.
for our birth clients. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here
Oh,
and
thank you
sharing
for
your
having me.
knowledge and telling your, personal story as well. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. This was a pleasure. I know we talked about this. Then I had a birth, but it's fine.
very
We're here
cool.
now. We're here.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And we're doing it before this baby comes. So,
Yes. So hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.